Good morning, everyone.
Afternoon, Minister.
It's afternoon. You see, I'm so used to our briefings being morning.
To a morning briefing.
Good afternoon, everyone. I welcome you to this special Jamaica House briefing from the Office of the Prime Minister, Western Region, Montego Bay. And it is always such a pleasure to be in the Republic of Montego Bay, and this visit is long overdue. An important part of our OPM communication and outreach is to create more opportunities for participation and engagement, and taking our briefings outside of the OPM Kingston office is an integral part of that strategy. There are many good things that are happening in the West to promote growth and development. And we have developments in construction, in health, in tourism, in agriculture, and the BPO industry, among other areas. Today, I'm pleased to be sharing with you, journalists in Western Montego Bay, and to those who are joining us live on the PBCJ, and those who are joining us as we're streaming as well, the ministers who are joining us today. And I have with me Minister of Agriculture, Labour and Social Security, the Honourable Derek Kelly, the Minister of Tourism and Entertainment, the Honourable Dr. Wicker McNeil, is also in Montego Bay, but he's now meeting with an investor, and we expect that he will join us shortly. We have the Minister without portfolio in the Ministry of Transport, Works and Housing, who is my neighbour in the Cabinet, the Honourable Dr. Maurice Guy, and we also have the Minister of State in the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce, Mrs. Sharon Folks Abrahams. And what we're going to do today, we're going to have the ministers. As I said before, there are many developments happening in the West, and we're going to start off with our most senior minister. And you know, he looks very young, but he's our most senior minister, so we always defer to the senior people. And we're going to start off with the Honourable Derek Kelly, who will give us a brief on the things that are happening in the ministries that he oversees.
Thank you very much, Minister, and good afternoon to everyone. I want to acknowledge the Deputy Mayor who is here with us, and of course my Permanent Secretary, Mr. Donovan Stanbury. I'm very happy that you could facilitate the citizens of Western Jamaica, Minister, with this long overdue press conference. I'm sure the press down in these parts are very hungry for good news. And I'm sure that this occasion that you have afforded them will certainly redound to the benefit of all Jamaicans. As is well known, I cover two ministries, Labour and Social Security, as well as Agriculture and Fisheries. But my remarks today will only be dealing with matters under the Ministry of Agriculture, because the nature of the ministry and the role it plays now in the critical growth agenda of the country. So I'll be speaking particularly to those matters relating to agriculture here in Western Jamaica, and not a full detailed account of the total island development where agriculture is concerned. In our continued efforts to advance the development of Jamaica's agricultural sector, making it more modern, efficient and internationally competitive, the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries has been implementing a raft of strategic initiatives across the island. Our priority projects have been aimed primarily at promoting food security, import substitution, production and productivity expansion. In this regard, and in spite of the challenges of climate change, the impact of extreme weather and of pests and diseases, we have soldiered on and have been able to achieve growth in many areas. And thanks goes to the resilience and the commitment of our farmers. The ministry resolve continues to be to position the sector to achieve higher levels of growth and so contribute to increased GDP, employment, rural development, and a reduction of our food import bill. We recognize and accept our role as a critical player in pursuing the national growth agenda and indeed increasing the welfare of our people. Since 2012, we have witnessed and experienced a lot of highs and lows in the sector. Things like the outbreak of the beta armyworm in St. Elizabeth, the outbreak of the citrus greening disease in parts of our orange producing belt, the devastation of the sector, especially in the eastern parishes by Hurricane Sandy in 2012, October. But in spite of these setbacks, we have forged ahead in 2013 with the rollout of the first 5 of 9 agro-parks, the continued expansion of the ginger and turmeric program, expansion of the Irish potato program towards achieving self-sufficiency, and transformation of the sugarcane sector, especially with our barracks relocation program, the social infrastructure projects, and expansion of sugarcane production through the Cane Expansion Fund. By the end of the third quarter of 2013, the sector returned to positive growth trajectory, and by the first quarter of 2014, had fully rebounded and reached an 18% growth rate, followed by a 12.6% in the second quarter. With the continuing drought, however, the positive growth trend was reversed, but we were not daunted, and in fact, by December 2014, there were numerous reports from farmers and hecklers in markets across the island attesting to an abundance of food for the Christmas season, due mainly to our initial $33 million intervention as part of our drought response and mitigation efforts. An additional $95 million has been approved in September for our continued mitigation measures, and we expect the recovery to continue during the current quarter. The achievements in the sector over the past 3 years have resulted from our deliberate strategies and the implementation of policies all across Jamaica. Western Jamaica has, of course, also been instrumental in this, and I wish to highlight some of our projects in this area. 2 of the agro-parks now in operation are located in New Forest Duff House on the Manchester-St. Elizabeth border and Mailersfield in Westmoreland. To date, some $611 million has been invested in infrastructure, irrigation, roads, and packing facilities at New Forest Duff House. Some 234 farmers have been employed, and some 204,273 kilograms, valued at $8 million of produce, including pineapples, vegetables, and peppers, have been reaped. At Mailersfield, $40.8 million is being invested to establish a 3,683 square foot Aki and Kalalo canning facility, the rehabilitation of 813 meters squared of roads, and the installation of some 1,290 feet of electric pole lines. Upon completion of the infrastructure works, this agro-park will purchase Aki and Kalalo from farmers in Westmoreland and the Hanover area. One of our big projects, the Sugar Transformation Program, funded under the European Union program, the Sugar Transformation Program of some $1.2 billion in grant funding has been invested to date in the sugar-dependent areas within the parishes of St. Elizabeth, Westmoreland, and Trelawney. Projects have included Cane Roads Rehabilitation Program, some 32 kilometers of roadway valued at $138 million has been expended. Drain cleaning and 4 major drainage systems, to the tune of some $35.85 million. Social infrastructure projects, a total of 55 construction and improvement projects, which include schools, clinics, libraries, and so on, are valued at some $608 million. We have also done 6 sporting facilities at a cost of some $86.5 million. We have also provided vocational training for some 127 residents across the 3 parishes. And in addition, under the Cane Expansion Fund, approval has been given for the planting of some 5,325 hectares of cane at a cost of $846 million. And 9 applications for equipment valued at $61 million has also been approved. Under the fund, so far, 4,503.3 hectares of cane have also been planted. The sugar workers' housing. As part of the transformation process in sugar-dependent areas, government has also recognized the dire need for the provision of improved housing for estate workers and their families. To this end, the following has been undertaken in the western parishes. 1. With grant funding from the EU Barracks Relocation Program, some $298 million has been spent to rehouse 84 families at Spicy Hill. In Trelawney and Maysmere and Shrewsbury and Barham in Westmoreland. The Sugar Company of Jamaica Holdings Limited is undertaking housing development and community regularization program across all 6 sugar estates in St. Catherine, Clarendon, Westmoreland, and St. Thomas, and Trelawney, and has established a housing project unit to coordinate all these activities. The broad strategies being employed to remedy the decade-old problems on the sugar estates are community regularization of some 10,000 families, joint venture housing projects with private developers providing some 6,000 homes, the sale of individual houses, providing solutions of some 1,251 homes, the relocation of 9 communities involving some 2,640 families, the sale of lands for housing development, and joint venture agreement between the National Housing Trust and ourselves. In Westmoreland, some 2,850 home ownership solutions are to be provided, with 861 to be completed in 2015 in the parishes as follows. In Hertford, the Morass area, 650 beneficiaries. In Shrewsbury, 85. In Barham, 6. In Maysmere, 70. And East Plant, 50. I turn very quickly to the Fisheries Division. In addition to Mailersfield Agro Park, which is aimed at facilitating the resuscitation of aquaculture industry, the Bluefields Bay, White House, and Southwest Key special fishery conservation areas are 3 of the 14 established island-wide to arrest the depletion of our marine stock and increase our conservation efforts. Over $40 million has been spent on the management of the sanctuaries, and the ministry will continue to support this program even as we modernize and build the fishing industry. Under the Food Safety Modernization Program, some $20 million is being granted to 20 farmers and exporters by the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries under the National Food Safety Modernization Project. Under this project, the ministry provides capacity building and financial assistance to farmers and exporters to meet the requirements of the Food Safety Modernization Act, legislated by the United States in 2011. Over 5,000 farmers island-wide, including many in the western parishes, have been sensitized to the FSMA and trained in pesticide management and record keeping, and some 200 trained in the gaps, which is the good agricultural practices. Prototypes for an on-farm sanitation, packaging shed, and storage facilities have been developed, and grant assistance provided to farmers and exporters to assist them to upgrade their infrastructure at their facilities. And in this regard, we have had remarkable performers from the parishes of Hanover and Westmoreland. One of our success stories is ginger production. And last year, ginger production reached a 25-year record high level. The parishes of St. James and Hanover produced some of the largest volumes of ginger, recording from 376.8 of the 1,197.9 tons that were produced island-wide. The agritourism farmers markets, which is held in the resort areas of Negril and Montego Bay. This is a tourism linkage project, was conceptualized in an effort to bolster the advantages and opportunities which exist between the local agricultural sector and tourism. This initiative also seeks to strengthen the partnership, which is envisioned between various productive sectors as part of the linkages hub, which has been established by the Ministry of Tourism and Entertainment. And as we look forward to the future, we aim to build on the successes of the past, some of which I have outlined today. And going forward, we intend to continue to explore financing for the establishment of the new agri-parks here in Western Jamaica, which we intend to establish in Shetlerwood, Sunderland, Enfield, and Seven Rivers, which already has an irrigation system in place. In collaboration with the European Union, funded Jamaica Banana Accompanying Measures Program, commonly known as the BAM, we intend to pursue a new thrust to revitalize the banana sector through the proposed agri-park at Seven Rivers and Sunderland to target the export banana trade. As we look to the future, we recognize the critical importance of planning to address climate change, imperatives, and to develop adaptation strategies for all sectors of the industry. As we seek to build a modern and internationally competitive sector, we intend to pursue best practices in terms of food safety and global accreditation standards. In accordance with this, we intend to pursue Global GAP certification program, which is a requirement for the export market and to allow all our agri-parks must become Global GAP certified if they are to remain in business. Last but not by no means least, we will continue to build our research and development capacity, our laboratory capabilities, our extension services, our training and capacity building initiatives, the use of technology, and involvement of women and youth in the sector. I sincerely hope that this information, which is not exhaustive, will provide the basis for questions later on. Thank you very much, Minister.
Thank you very much, Minister Kellier. And now we turn to the Honorable Dr. Maurice Guy, who has portfolio responsibility for housing, and he will give us an update on all the good things that are happening in the West. Dr. Guy.
Thank you very much, Minister. Colleague ministers, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. The government of Jamaica assiduously continues to pursue methods to make Jamaica an ownership society by providing access to affordable, legal, and safe housing solutions. In an effort to carry forward this mandate, this political administration, through the Ministry of Transport, Works and Housing, has embarked on a number of initiatives across the island through the Housing Agency of Jamaica, within the core ministry itself, and within our sister agency, the National Housing Trust. However, for the purposes of this press briefing, I wish to focus your attention on the projects that we have been or are being implemented in Western Jamaica. These are as follows. Within the core ministry at Albion Muse, the Albion Muse project was developed to provide housing solutions for 48 families at Albion Tenement that was originally constructed to house people displaced by Hurricane Charlie in 1951. The project is set to be completed by the end of February 2015 and has an output of 30 units in Phase 1 and 18 units in Phase 2 at a total cost of $110 million. In Lee Park, the ministry intends to develop 70 service lots, 1 green and open space and 1 community space at Lee Park, also called Lee Runs Farm Pen, and that is located in Westmoreland. In St. Elizabeth, the Gazeland project is expected to yield 18 service lots with the necessary infrastructure at an estimated development cost of $35.9 million, and this project is about 98% completed. In Bounty Hall, Trelawney, there is a project consisting of 8 lots to be sold in the upcoming financial year. In Fullerswood, Westmoreland, there are 26 lots which are ready to be sold. That is, infrastructure already exists and titles are available. Hague lots 1, 2, and 5. The infrastructure work to be carried out in Hague lots 1, 2, and 5 is set to produce 61 service lots at an estimated development cost of $62 million. There are other projects which are in the planning stage, and these include Landila, Open Space 1 and 2, York Hill, Hanover, and Hatfield. York Hill in Hanover and Hatfield, Westmoreland, which is a total of 71 lots being prepared and sold in the western region of the island. As it relates to the Housing Agency of Jamaica, this agency is ardent to the task of providing 1,500 housing solutions for the new financial year. They are as follows. Green Pond, St. James, where the Housing Agency will develop 324 housing solutions in Green Pond at a cost of $1.4 billion. Work is scheduled to begin in April 2015. Vernon Drive, St. James. Residents in St. James will benefit from 92 bedroom units to be developed in Vernon Drive under a public-private partnership agreement at a cost of $700 million. And this project is expected to commence in July 2015. In Westmoreland, the Ministry of Tourism and Entertainment has requested assistance through the Ministry of Transport, Works and Housing in relocating 90 informal settlers along the main corridor to Negril as part of the ministry's development plans for the area. That's the Tourism Ministry. This exercise is scheduled to commence in February 2015 and it will be located at Nonpareil in Westmoreland. As it relates to Grange Pen, the government is mindful of the importance of public-private partnerships to development of the country. Therefore, the Housing Agency will partner with a private developer to construct 752 housing solutions comprising of 344 single-family units, 148 studios, 114 one-bedroom, 82 two-bedroom, and 408 service lots at a total cost of $3.5 billion. In Loana Gardens, St. Elizabeth, this project is being done under the Jamaica Economic Housing Project. The project consists of 70 houses and 32 service lots at a cost of $1.4 billion. This is inclusive of construction and development cost. As of January 31st, the project is 85% completed. Whitehall, Westmoreland, 600 lots and 173 studio units at a cost of $1.04 billion has been done, and currently the project is 96% completed. Other projects from the HAJ in Western Jamaica will result in 875 housing solutions in Loana Gardens Phase 4, St. Elizabeth, and Whitehall, Westmoreland by April 2015. As it relates to the National Housing Trust, ladies and gentlemen, this organization is making its contribution to the housing sector and will construct 1,046 housing solutions and 850 service lots over the period 2015 to 2019 within the western region of the island. The details of this, however, will be further elaborated by the Honorable Prime Minister in her budget debate. It should be noted, however, that during the 2012 to 2014 period, the NHT also constructed or provided interim financing for the construction of 7 housing developments within the said region. And these are broken down as follows. Stonebrook Vista Trelawney, 310 housing solutions were developed by Chemtech Development and Construction in 2012. Stonebrook Vista Phase 2, 382 solutions were done by Chemtech as well. Whitehall Phase 3 Westmoreland, 155 housing solutions, and this, as I indicated, was undertaken by the Housing Agency of Jamaica. Hamden Trelawney, 150 units were constructed using under the First Step Housing Initiative by the National Housing Trust, the Ministry of Transport Works and Housing, and Food for the Poor Partnership in 2013. And Hamden Trelawney again, 40 other units were constructed under this First Step Housing Program. In Malersfield, Westmoreland, 30 units were constructed under the First Step Housing Program by the NHT. And Holland Estate Phase 1, Stonebrook Vista Trelawney, 98 housing solutions are being developed by Zuccarina Development Jamaica Limited from 2012 to the current time. And in Balaclava, St. Elizabeth, 113 solutions, infrastructure and construction at 90% completed as of today's date. I will now speak on a number of initiatives that are being pursued by the government to address the many challenges being encountered in getting titles of land into the hands of generations of Jamaicans. The Ministry of Transport Works and Housing has been tasked with the responsibility to coordinate the issuing of over 45,000 titles over the next 3 years. As a ministry, the task is being undertaken in collaboration with stakeholders such as the National Land Agency, the Housing Agency of Jamaica, the Ministry of Water, Land, Environment and Climate Change, the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries, as the Honourable Minister mentioned earlier on, and the Administrator General's Department in the delivery of said instruments. To this end, the Ministry has assembled a team to examine and assess the variables in the delivery of certificates of title, the obstacles that impede the process, and how it extends to all our stakeholders, as well as definitive decisions are to be taken to address the hindrances by adjusting existing policies and pursuing legislative amendments to attain the desired quantity. Under the titling program, the Ministry has targeted the parishes of Clarendon, Manchester, and Portland, which then, when combined, has 29 targeted schemes, 1,300 titles involved, and 131 titles endorsed in purchaser's name. Since the start of this financial year, the legal unit has obtained 613 splinter titles and has delivered 445 certificates of titles to date, including just under 50 in flankers within the past week. LAMP, as part of the titling program, will produce approximately 1,900 titles for the 2015-2016 fiscal year, with the assistance of a grant of $90 million from the Development Bank of Jamaica. The National Land Agency will continue its momentum towards creating more splinter titles. As such, the Commissioner of Lands has 388 land settlements, of which 271 are partially titled. I will indicate here, ladies and gentlemen, that some of these exist from the late 50s into the early 60s. And this government has undertaken to ensure that these persons who have been living on these lands over the years have and will obtain their titles. The Housing Agency of Jamaica, under the titling program, has over 7,892 splinter titles that are waiting to be transferred. This comprises primarily those under Operation Pride. And this, ladies and gentlemen, translates into 47 communities and 16,000 lots. One of the most far-reaching decisions to affect the land titling program comes out of the Administrator General's Department. This department has some 2,200 estates that are categorized as multi-generational. These are estates where there are letters of administration, and in some cases none, and the beneficiaries would have died not less than 25 years, but estates have not been closed. The Administrator General's Department has sought to to provide a solution through legislative change. Pursuant to Cabinet Decision 44 of 14, approval was granted for the Administrator General's Amendment Bill for the tabling in the Houses of Parliament, and this bill is currently before the Senate for debate. This legislation will empower the Administrator General to transfer property of the primary estate to beneficiaries who are able to prove their relationship to the primary deceased and for the connecting secondary deceased, thereby bypassing the need for personal representation where there is none in place. Essentially what this means is that instead of going to the courts, the Administrator General will be empowered based on affidavits signed by the third generation that they are connected to the first of the beneficiary estate, primary beneficiary estate, that they are related, and hence the process can be expedited. An estimated 200 transfers will be completed in the first year. The success of this project, ladies and gentlemen, is heavily dependent on the implementation of various initiatives and legislative amendments. However, as Minister with responsibility for housing, I am confident that the projected aggregates of titles of 15,000 per year for the next 3 years will be met. Thank you.
I'm excited, and I can look on Clinton Pickering's face, and I can tell that he's very excited too about all the wonderful things that are happening for the West. Now I'm going to ask State Minister, the Honorable Sharon Folks Abrahams, to give us an update, and she's going to focus on the BPO industry.
Thank you very much, Minister, and welcome to the West. Very happy that you're here. And good afternoon to everyone. I'm pleased to say that in Montego Bay, we have a robust business process outsourcing industry worth $260 million US. Most of it is concentrated in the free zone area, where we currently have 35 entities operating and providing work for some 14,500 employees in Jamaica. The government of Jamaica is also working to ramp up that amount to 24,000 employees. In fact, there has been an agreement signed between the Inter-American Development Bank and Compete Caribbean program, where they are funding a BPO cluster initiative project, which includes a BPO incubator to be opened within the Montego Bay Free Zone in March of this year. The funding for the project will be US $500,000 and will result in the establishment of a 200-seater BPO industry. The Free Zone has already identified the first client and is in discussion with 2 other interested companies. So we see the growth of this industry is very rapid and can ramp up very quickly to provide more jobs for us here in Western Jamaica. Columbus Business Solutions sponsored a new engagement center to provide recreational facilities in the zone for workers there. The BPO employee count climbed over the 7,000 mark in Montego Bay for the first time in the industry of the Free Zone. And in April 2014, for the period November 2014, the zone recorded a marginal increase of 3.23%, or 223 new workers between January and November of 2014. One new investor in that area is Fleming Conferences, which commenced operation in August of 2014 and has been doing extremely well and has recorded impressive growth in that area. The Montego Bay Free Zone had an unfulfilled demand of 75,000 square feet of space as of October 2014. However, the Board of Directors has approved the conversion of factory number 7 to create 66,000 more square feet of space. The Montego Bay Free Zone provides services to a diverse range of business operators, which includes garment industry as well, electronic assembling, and warehousing. The garment manufacturing serves customers across 3 continents in the world and caters to the intimate apparel niche sector. So not only do we have business process outsourcing, but we also have a garment industry there, which can also be developed further than it is right now. The Barnett Technology Park has built a new 50,000 square foot building for BPO and will be constructing another 150,000 square feet of space in the near future to support more of the industry. Trading within the Montego Bay Free Zone will receive a boost as the Caribbean Maritime Institute will be providing training to support the existing programs being executed by HART. I want to say that myself as the Member of Parliament, I'm putting money also from my funds to support this particular development and training. Also, in Montego Bay, we have the Montego Bay Community College, which will be celebrating 40 years this year, and among other things, will be partnering with the Montego Bay Free Zone to host a public forum to discuss the future of the business process outsourcing in the Montego Bay and Western region. I want to talk a little bit also about the establishment of a bamboo industry here in the West. We are ramping up Horton Court, which is a factory that will be refurbished by the Factories Corporation to house part of this new industry. Currently, the bamboo industry is worth an estimated 12 billion US globally and is expected to be worth some US 20 billion by the end of this year. Jamaica is now the chair of INBAR, which is the International Network of Bamboo and Rattan, and this is an organization that has about 40 countries. Jamaica has only been a part of this organization for 2 years and has been voted in as the chair for this year and next year. And we in Jamaica will be hosting the next conference in 2016 with all those 40 countries in attendance. So we have a lot to look forward to in this particular industry. I want to indicate that bamboo has many uses. It has a wide range of products, including bamboo flooring, corrugated roofing, furniture, handmade bamboo woven laminates, pens, pencils, toothpicks, and also bamboo charcoal. So this is an area that in fact can give us a lot of return on our money and is part of the growth industry as well. We are also looking at the titling space that has already been mentioned by the Minister of Lands, and we are looking at 100 new titles in Mount Salem to be given out this year for the comfort lands in Mount Salem. So these are some of the projects that we are looking at in the West. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister Fawkes Abrahams. And of course, the Honorable Dr. Wickham McNeil has been working all morning, and that's why he's joining us a little late, but we're so very happy to have him. And I know he has a lot of exciting news to tell us about what is happening in the tourism industry. And his PS is here as well, and we welcome you, PS, and the rest of his team members. Minister.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I'm not going to be very long. Just a couple of things. This morning, the ministry and its agencies had a consultation at the Half Moon Conference Center, or at the Half Moon. I see some of the persons there. Certainly the Deputy Mayor was there, Member of Parliament, and we had discussions with the community, including members of the resort board, about the projects that we'll be undertaking here in Montego Bay going forward. It was a very fruitful discussion, and out of it there are some areas that we're looking at specifically. While we have to go into more details in the plans, we will be looking at some of the areas covering from Freeport right across town into the Dump Up Beach and onto the Hip Strip, as well as a number of other projects. So we have started that process so that we can incorporate some of those projects into the budget of TEF for the upcoming year, given the fact that we've already started major work in Ocherios, Negril. As a matter of fact, the road in Negril, I understand, is starting today. They're starting the road from Nonpareil to Negril, as well as a number of other projects. We're doing the plans for the work to be done on the Windward Road section in Kingston, as well as looking at projects for Falmouth, the South Coast, and Portland. So it was important to have the consultation today. I think one of the things that I will just mention for Montego Bay, which would be of interest, is that the work on the Montego Bay Elegant Corridor is proceeding nicely and is slated to be completed by the middle of this year. The project was a $248 million project. It's a lighting project, and it's a significant investment by the Tourism Enhancement Fund in Montego Bay. At present, trenches are currently being dug, the cables are being laid, and the base pillar for the light poles are being installed in the medians of the roadway from Sea Castles to Sugar Mill. Anybody who is going out will see the work that's taking place now. Work will begin shortly on the eastern side of the thoroughfare from Sea Castles to Lilliput. The lights will be installed in segments, and the intention is to have them all in place by May of this year. I want to underscore that the work being done on this 17-kilometer, which is a $10.5 million corridor, will ultimately benefit all stakeholders along the thoroughfare, including communities such as Lilliput, Flankers, Barretttown, and Providence, as well as the hotels and other businesses along that stretch of roadway. So that has to do with the sort of projects side of what we're looking at here in Montego Bay, St. James. The second thing I wanted to do was to just report on the performance of the tourism sector. We have now gotten our final figures for December 2014, including for the month of December 2014. So we have now completed the year with the final figures. Just to say that we had a very strong December with the increases of 5.9% in December over 2013, with 213,129 arrivals. And cruise ship was also up 12.6% for December. So we had a very strong December. For the year 2014 over 2013, the tourism sector continues to experience steady growth. Jamaica achieved another major milestone in 2014 as the island again welcomed over 2 million stopover visitors, surpassing the figure that we did, surpassing the 2 million that we did in 2013. Between January and December 2014, we welcomed 2,080,181 stopover visitors, which represents an increase of 3.6% over the 2,008,000 400 stopover visitors recorded for 2013. So overall, we welcome over 71,000 more visitors in 2014 than we did in 2013. Of significance is we saw growth out of all of our main markets. Stopover arrivals out of Europe grew by 10.7%, while arrivals out of Canada increased by 5.2%. Stopover arrivals out of the US grew by 2% overall, with an increase of 5.4% out of the West and 5.6% out of the South. The inflow of visitors from Asia also increased by 9.2%. In 2014, the island welcomed 1.423,797,000 cruise visitors, which represents an increase of 12.5% over 2013. In other words, Jamaica welcomed over 158,000 more cruise ship visitors in 2014 than we did in 2013. I think it is significant to point out something that has been a matter of some discussion. In 2014, all the main cruise ship ports in Jamaica registered an increase in arrivals. Falmouth saw an increase of 19.5% over 2013, or 125,000 additional visitors, while cruise arrivals in Ocho Rios grew by 7.7%. Montego Bay recorded an increase of about 1% in additional visitors over 2013. So in total, Jamaica welcomed some 3.5 million visitors to the island in 2014. I think another point that is also important is while our arrivals were up by 3.6%, the provisional gross foreign exchange earnings between January and December 2014 are in excess of US $2.2 billion, which is a 5.8% more than the same period in 2013. So I think that the important point to be taken from there is while we are growing consistently and well in terms of our arrivals, our growth in earnings are outpacing that of the growth in arrivals, which is a good sign for Jamaica. The figures, or preliminary figures for January are very promising, and the reports out of the markets from our team out at the JTB and from our partners in the private sector are that we will have a very strong winter season, and things are shaping up for the summer. I think of note here in Montego Bay is that for the first time I'm in cruise shipping, we are seeing 3 cruise ships home porting here in Montego Bay. So we have the Cuban cruises, the Aida, as well as the Thompson Dream. So if we are able to spread our linkages programs, which are doing so well, into areas to ensure that we can benefit from the supplying of all the things that need to go into these cruise ships, it can be an added benefit to the economy of Montego Bay. Those are my few brief points. Thank you.
Well, that news was worth waiting for, Minister McNeil, and I know that the people of Montego Bay and generally in Western Jamaica are very excited. We're going to open the floor for questions, but we have rules. And I'm told that the journalists in Western Jamaica are very well behaved, and they're going to follow the rules and stick to the number of questions that we allow. So yes, and he assured me that we were going to have a great time today. So the rules are, we start with a question and a follow-up from each journalist. And if we have time, we'll go around the room again. So we open the floor. I knew Clinton would have been the first person. Clinton, can somebody pass the microphone for him, please?
Thank you, Clinton Pickering. And my question is to be addressed by the Minister of Agriculture. Mr. Minister, you covered several areas, but I was waiting to hear you say something about rice production in Western Jamaica. This has been a long-standing matter, and I know there was a pilot project. We need to have some update. And at the same time, could you also tell us about what's happening in respect of new RADA offices built in Hague, I think it is, and also any update on the YAM project by the ladies in also Spring Trelawney? Thank you, sir.
The second project that you mentioned was? You mentioned a rice project? The RADA office in Trelawney. Okay. Yeah, okay. Well, where rice production is concerned, everyone here would know that there was some concerted effort over the last 5 years to get rice production back on track in the country. Some experiments were done that did not meet up to the mark, so to speak. And interest seemed to have waned in the development of the rice production in the country. This is something that we intend to take a second look at to see what went wrong from that foray, and to see whether or not it is a viable option for us in Jamaica. As soon as the experts advise us how to proceed in this matter, after we do an evaluation, because a lot of time was spent in trying to get it back by the former administration and by Minister Clark when he was the minister in charge as well. But it somehow just did not take off. And we have to see where the pitfalls have been and whether or not it is a viable option for us. In our quest to deal with food security, it is very important that we examine everything. But at this point in time, we have not yet got an evaluation of the project. And as soon as that is done, I'll be able to make some kind of a statement to tell the nation where we're going with rice production. In respect of the office in Trelawney, we had hoped to have opened that office from last year, that new office. I was advised that there were some loose ends not yet tied up just 2 weeks ago. And as soon as that is done, we will be moving to have that office opened and properly staffed. So it is very high on the agenda, because we had hoped to have done it before. But that will be done soon so that the people in Trelawney can be even better served than they are right now with that being done. The details of the YAM project, I am not totally familiar with the details of the YAM project. I heard something about it a week ago. And as such, we have not reached there yet. Minister Buchanan, my deputy, went through the area at the end of December, but we have not been back there to find out how things are progressing. As soon as we have that information again, for what it is worth, we'll make sure that the media has an update on it so that they can tell the rest of the nation about it. Indeed, because the development of the yam industry in this country is very important to us. And because of the ability to earn some foreign exchange and to create more employment for the people, particularly up in the Trelawney belt, it is something that we are actually looking into very seriously. And we have persons actually who are in the marketing arm of the ministry that are pursuing some efforts overseas to seek markets for them at this time, even as we speak. So you'll hear more about that as time goes by.
You had a follow-up?
Well, if I might, you know, in terms of the rice project, maybe Dr. McNeil, as a son of Westmoreland, could assist you when you're doing all your research, because, you know, a lot of rice used to come out of Westmoreland, right? And may I also ask that, you know, while you're doing all your research, you also research a question of, you know, corn production in Jamaica, you know, because, you know, that is another area that we're lacking in. Thank you.
Thank you. Could you introduce yourself, please?
I'm Mark Titus, the Gleaner Company. I have a question for Dr. McNeil and also a question for State Minister Fawkes Abrams. Sir, Dr. McNeil, the Beach Control Act of June 1956 remains our only legislation regulating beachfronts in Jamaica. And some 2 decades ago, the government did promise that it was their intention to develop a beach policy. With all these developments and investments coming into the region, access to our people remains a concern of the people. Where are we at in terms of the beach policy? And for Senator Fawkes Abrams, ma'am, the expansion of the BPO industry, the demand for office space, the potential for growth and for employment of our people. We now are at 17,000, ma'am, not 14,000 as you said. We are at 17,000 employees in the industry. Where are we at? Are the private-public partnership that was demanded or called on from our people to have a partnership to build out these office space? Have you been getting responses from except for Barnett Estate, yes? Have you been getting any response for that call for the private investors to buy into that development? Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Titus, thank you. You spoke specifically of the beach policy. Of course, the beach policy falls under NEPA. And recently, the minister with responsibility, Robert Pickersgill, actually brought a document to cabinet looking at beaches, and I'm sure going forward we can have more discussion on that. However, what I will tell you is that from our position at the Ministry of Tourism, we have had some concerns about that, and I'll tell you why. You know, years ago, you would maybe drive along and just decide you want to stop at beaches here, there, wherever. And there were a lot more areas where you could just go and swim. It is our feeling that there must be places across the length and breadth of this island where people can go. And when I say people, Jamaicans primarily, where not just you and I, but you and I are getting a little longer in the tooth. And so, you know, but certainly our children want to be able to have access to the best beaches in the country. Therefore, last year I announced that in the sectoral debate that we had started a beaches program. And through the Tourism Enhancement Fund, we have identified beaches from Morant Point in the east to Negril in the west. And what we're doing is getting some of the best beaches in the island. We're securing ownership for them. We're putting in basic facilities, things like change rooms, bathrooms. There will be certain other facilities in some and others. But that these beaches in perpetuity will be free and available to Jamaicans to have access for. And we have started the program. We already have a number of beaches. I can give you the list, but we have a list of beaches that have already been identified and work has started on them. And it is not going to be a one-off. It's a continuous program because we feel that we need to really secure a lot of them in every parish of this country, because there are beaches in every parish. But we are going to go and push that program. So the program is underway, and as I said, it is to ensure that for the patrimony going forward of all generations of Jamaicans. And the second reason, secondary to that, is that there's a burgeoning market of villas and apartments across the country. People are now buying into housing schemes, returning residents who have been away for years, buying houses in different places and come back to Jamaica, whether to retire or if they're younger, to come and enjoy Jamaica. And many of these schemes and different things are not on beaches. So you want to ensure that they are able to go and enjoy those beaches. So the program is underway. I'll furnish you with a list of them. I think we're somewhere between, I think it's 12 or 14 in the first year that we're pushing on the way, but a number of them are out there already. And we're working with NEPA and members of parliament and others in identifying more as we go along to ensure that we can have a continuous program.
And if I may add to what the minister has said, as somebody in the Prime Minister's office, I speak on behalf of the Prime Minister, and my cabinet colleagues will also attest to it, that the Prime Minister, it is a pet peeve of hers. She wants beaches to be developed across the island with proper facilities for the use of all Jamaicans, and she has been pushing for it. I turn now to Minister.
Thank you very much. I certainly will accept 17,000 as the amount. I have 14,000 here from my knowledge, but I know that there has been an increase in the amount of seats that have been developed. We have, in fact, received some interest from the private area in Jamaica. We have a public-private partnership in Mandeville recently that has been signed for BPO. I'm not sure if you're aware, but that was in the press. We also have an RFP coming up for Nago's Head, because we're trying to expand the industry from Montego Bay across the nation. We know we have some in Kingston, but we'd like to see more ramped up. So we do have an expression of interest that will be coming out for Nago's Head, but we do have interest in Mandeville already, and the project has already begun there. We, of course, need a lot more. Barnett Estates has given us a good start in that they have built out 50,000 square feet, and they're building out another 150,000 square feet, because I understand that they already have tenants. So this is an area that can be ramped up very quickly, but we do need the interest of the public-private partnership. So we need more private builders in Jamaica to partner with government in this very important and lucrative venture, because I understand that there's a lot of money to be made by those who do invest in it. Also, the fact that there are loans coming from the DBJ, there's money set aside for this particular development. So there is money for persons who are amenable to this kind of enterprise.
You have a follow-up?
A question for Minister Kelly. The issue of cane fires, and last week I was at Frome when you elaborated on the need for a community approach, and your permanent secretary has also been lamenting the necessity for this. But with 1,700 acres of cane, approximately 1,700 acres of cane destroyed over the weekend, where do we go, sir? I hear some of the some calls for the army to return into the Frome Sugar Belt area. Would this work in your view?
it is a very complex issue, and one is a very unfortunate incident that took place down there. The truth of the matter is that no one can predict when someone will wantonly go there in a very irresponsible way to set fire to a cane field to destroy investors' money, some of their own, some that they have borrowed from the bank. There is no simple solution to all of this. But I believe if we get with the communities and we try and educate the citizens some more about their own responsibilities in this matter and what it is that sugar is doing and can do for Jamaica. I think if they get the message and they get the understanding of the importance of this industry, then it may create a change in attitude. In the past, if you look at the history of the sugarcane industry, in the past, for the most part, it was owned by the government. And when some people had a grouse with the government, they felt that lighting the cane fields was a way of blowing off that steam because it was the government. The government no longer owns cane fields. All the cane fields are now in private hands. So it's private people cane you're burning down. So, you know, we have a responsibility as community, as government, to really get together with the people and try and get a change in attitude. We have to show them what the sugar does for them personally, what it does for the country overall. It provides the foreign exchange. It provides hundreds of jobs. Sugar is still the largest employer of labor in the country. And huge investments have been put in there, both by local farmers and by the other enterprises, including the Chinese, who have made huge investments into the sugar industry. It's a very unfortunate thing, and we just have to keep appealing to the sensitivities of the persons who do this thing wantonly to stop, to cease and desist. But it is going to take some time. No one meeting is not going to solve it, but we have to start somewhere. We are currently aligned to a program that is being developed by Pan-Caribbean to deal with this issue in terms of making the information available to the people within the cane belt. And something is being done right now in preparation for what you call a series of community meetings and interventions that we are preparing. So we are trying to be as proactive as we can. In respect to the soldiers, the decision for that kind of deployment rests with the Ministry of National Security. And I really, if things escalate beyond a certain level, certainly we will ask for all the necessary support. The decision as to what that kind of support and resources are is dependent on his judgment. But whatever it is necessary, we want to see the farmers who have labored out there, to see them protected from this kind of wanton action by irresponsible people.
Mark?
Question
Introduce
to-
yourself as well.
Oh,
sir.
Mark Cummins from the Observer. Minister McNeil, sorry, there was a 1%, almost 1% increase last year in cruise arrivals in Montego Bay. Could you cite the reasons why there were only just 1% increase? And are there any plans for the expansion of the Montego Bay port? And just a follow-up to Minister Kelly about rice cultivation. Could you tell us if there's currently any areas on a rice cultivation in Jamaica?
All right, let me just start by telling you, just to be clear, an increase is better than a decrease. And the fact is that we had an increase. If you had followed a lot of the news, persons were predicting and saying all along that you may actually have a decrease. That we had double-digit increase in cruise shipping to Jamaica last year is truly a positive. But understand something. That having happened, we have a lot of work to do. Hence the discussions that we are having across the country. Falmouth is a new pair. Work has taken place there. There's more work to be slated, but there's a lot to be done for it to become more inclusive, and we're working very closely with the Port Authority and the UDC to look at it and how we're going to work on that. When Falmouth was being built, I made the point that when you get a new pier, you're going to get some of the ships from other areas going there. And that did happen. And I made the point at the time that we had to do significant work in the other ports to keep them up and keep them competitive. We have started that work in Ocherios. And that work is apace. It's a four-part program, which we've done the Turtle River Road already. I don't know those of you that have seen it. It's really phenomenal. The work is almost completed in the pier, and they're now starting the work on the promenade, going back to town, and then we'll be doing the work on Main Street, which will allow persons, both Jamaicans and visitors, to really enjoy it, because what we envisage down the line is a place where Jamaicans, you know, Sandra can go and sit down on the promenade and drink a beer and eat ice cream on a Saturday afternoon, and so that's where we're looking at down the line. And so work has started there. Now, one of the things that we were doing at the consultation today is to have that discussion about Montego Bay. There are some things that need to be looked at. I've long said we have to look at some of the marquee attractions for Montego Bay, and that discussion still has to continue, and we're having that discussion. But at the same time, there has to be a build-out, because Montego Bay as a port, we're still having challenges with it. It is, for the average cruise ship passengers, they see it as a bit isolated. They can't just walk out and walk around. So we're looking at how we're going to develop the entire area and how that can be built up. At the consultation this morning, and I'm sorry you weren't there, but at the consultation, the Port Authority was there and had a discussion about what they thought were some of the things that could have been, that can be looked at. So the short answer is we're being able to keep our cruise ship arrivals increasing, but we still have a lot of infrastructure work to do if we are going to see sort of revolutionary increases going forward, and that is part of the rollout program. We have started in Ocherios, but there is work to be done in Montego Bay.
Yeah, the follow-up question about the rice. There are a few small plots of rice that some small farmers in Clarendon are currently undertaking, but these really have not made any significant impact on the national production figures. And that's what I'm saying. I think we have to get to the R&D to see how we can get varieties that can be grown in other areas apart from the traditional rice areas. In other words, a lot of people don't know that rice can grow on dry land and not necessarily in areas that are heavily watered and swamped. So, you know, we have to look on that. As I said, it's part of the evaluation that has to take place to see what it is that we need to do. I will learn from the last experience and determine how we go forward with it, to see whether it is a viable industry for us or we just need to produce enough to feed ourselves. But we have to do the evaluation first, and then we'll go on. But Clarendon does have a few small farmers that are currently involved in it.
Western Mirror? Yes.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Valdemar, representing the Western Mirror. My question goes to, My question goes to Minister Guy. You spoke to a number of housing developments that have been undertaken by, in recent years. Well, I want to speak to the issue of maintenance because I will cite two examples. In Stonebrook Vista in Trelawney, we have received complaints of a lack of bushing, which has been creating a mosquito nuisance for residents. And in the community of Portobello Estate, a recently developed community, I understand it's also a private development, there is a sewage issue which is affecting residents in Portobello Estate as well as in Cornwall Court. Again, I know that these are private developments, but what can government actually do to amend the situation?
Well, in answer to your question, every development that takes place, the local planning authority as well as NEPA has to be involved in the approval process. At the end of the process, there's a period within which the infrastructure, the roads, are handed over to local planning authority, i.e. the St. James Parish Council, and in the previous case, the Trelawney Parish Council. And it would be up to the local planning authority to ensure that the necessary standards are maintained. Our involvement in those two developments related primarily to funding interim financing from the National Housing Trust. So they are entirely private development in that sense. NEPA and the respective parish council would be the ones, with the Ministry of Health, would be the ones responsible for that. So if there's an issue, I think that those are the areas that should get the information, but I will undertake as well to pass on that to the necessary ones. And I'm advised to the Strata Commission as it relates to some deficiencies that may occur.
Jais?
Yes, thank you. Minister McNeil, question to you, sir. I know we had a tour of the Royalton, the Hyatt when it was being constructed, and of course, the Moon Palace. Can you give us an update as to where we are with those projects, sir?
Well, Hyatt is opened and going apace. I hear they're doing fairly well. Royalton has their development plans in for additional rooms. I think they're looking at 200 additional rooms. So that is, I mean, it's still a month later. It is not, the plans have not been all approved and so forth, but those up to recently in discussions with them, they're moving ahead. Moon Palace, they have expanded some of the scope of their work. I met with their principals. I think that the date, you know, subject to further, I think they have moved the date to April, early April to open. But given that they have done extensive renovations, but you know, for now, that's what we have on the table.
I think we have gone around the room. We'll take two final questions, and I'm sure the ministers will avail themselves. So if you want to have an exclusive, they will. So we go. Oh, you, sir.
Thank you, Senator. Albert Ferguson, RFM. I think this one is for you. As it relates to the government announcement recently to have a pediatric hospital here in Western Jamaica, where are we on that?
Well, I know that what has been happening, the Prime Minister has been reaching out to a lot of our partners and other countries, and I know some money was granted recently, but that money is looking at the preparatory and feasibility work. We still have to raise the money. It's a dream of the Prime Minister, and I know that she has been working assiduously and ensuring that the countries that are friendly countries to us will assist us in getting that becoming a reality.
Thank you, Mr. Minister McNeil. You earlier spoke to developments, you know, in the hotel sector, and it is my understanding, sir, that the Hilton has been bought by people on Joel's. You know, could you elaborate on that? And are there any plans for any further expansion? And at the same time, sir, could you please give us an update on the hospital, you know, that's being built as part of...
Okay, let me start with the latter. I met with some of the folks from Hospital at Fitur. The hotel site, as you can see, is under development and apparently going well. So they're happy, they're down monitoring it, and I'm not certain of the exact date that it is to be opened, but that development is well underway. What was the other? Okay, the Hilton was purchased by Sagicor. Having taken it over, I understand that the jewel is now fully in. I don't know what the development plans are, but I had the opportunity, I mean, not an unofficial thing, but the other day I had a discussion with the chairman who was saying to me that, you know, it was going very well. They seem to be performing well. Most properties are doing very well. Certainly in January of this year, the occupancies are going to be good. So they were very pleased and comfortable with the direction. In terms of what they intend to do in terms of development, they haven't revealed those to me yet.
I understand we have one last question at the back from the Mirror, and that's our final question.
This question goes to Minister McNeil. A number of hotels have been closed in recent years. Two of these, Breezes, Mobay, Fantasy. Minister, the government has already, on a number of occasions, indicated the need to have added hotel rooms for the, you know, for visitors when they do come to the island. What is being done to address this issue?
All right, I start by saying that when you mention Breezes, that's a specific case because Breezes has a part of the investment is the National Insurance Fund. However, it also has a private partner. The other properties you're speaking about are private properties. Now, I can tell you that there are private sector investors, both local and overseas, who are interested in all the properties. But, you know, one of the things about it is that you have a man who have in his mind a sale price, and you have a man who have in his mind a buy price. Right? And as a government, there's only so much you can do unless you carry some money to the table. And I'm saying in the climate we are in now, where Jamaica is so hot, where investment people are on the table, it is in everybody's best interest to strike where the iron is hot. I do know that discussions are taking place in a lot of them, and I hope that those are resolved quickly, because quite frankly, we need rooms, and those rooms are special in the sense that they're in the town and add a whole character when they are open. So it's unfortunate they're being locked for this period of time, but I'm confident that, you know, if as I said, if the buy impression and the sell impression can come closer together, I'm sure we'll see some activity there.
Well, just before we close, we said the last question, Mark, and we're going to hold to that. But if there's a minister that you need to talk to when we close, you can do so, because we're streaming live and PBCJ is doing their filming as well. But before I close, just to let you know that the West will have a radio station in this year, another radio station, Abeng FM, which is their compound radio station. They're getting it with assistance from UNESCO. It will come on stream this year, and it will serve an indigenous community and certainly the West. This was exciting. We were so happy to be here in Western Jamaica. I want to thank my colleague ministers who came out to assist us And yes, I see you, Clinton. We hope to be coming back here more often. It's certainly not going to be another 3 years. I'm not going to make a commitment about how often we're going to have it, but you're going to see me back here. And I think maybe the next time we come here, we'll have to go into bigger quarters. We may have to borrow somewhere from Minister McNeil, because I know, he has a lot of connections and sway down here, so we may have to borrow a space from him. But we want to thank you all for joining us. We want to thank our viewers and those who watched us on the World Wide Web. It was fun coming from Western Jamaica, and I know that you're excited. The government has been doing a lot of work, and we have been doing much to develop the West. And we will tell you more as we do more. Thank you so very much. Have a wonderful day.